You guys have been absolutely insane at showing the support on the channel, so let's give you another video. What's going on, guys? Jay Hoyd back with you today. Welcome back to NHL 24. We are back here on Online Versus for I think maybe the first time all year as far as NHL 24 goes. We have some pretty big news coming out of the Toronto Maple Leafs. They have signed forward William Nylander to a 8-year contract worth $11.5 million. Now, if I were to say he's not even the highest paid player on his own team, we're getting somewhere. So Toronto has been a big, I guess, core four, kind of core five, and that's kind of been their strategy. They have basically four forwards, who we all know who they are: Austin Matthews, John Tavares, William Nylander, and Mitch Marner. Obviously not necessarily in that order, but those guys are all getting huge paydays. And I mean, starting next year, because right now William Nylander is only making $6.962 million, and now with the extension he's going to be bumped up to 11.5. Next year alone, right, you're going to have Matthews' extension to kick in at $13.25 million for the next, I think it's like 4 years. Then you have John Tavares signed for another year at $11 million. Then you have Mitch Marner for another year at $10.9 million. Then you'll have the William Nylander extension, 11.5. Tyler Bertuzzi will be out of a contract, as you guys see on your screen. Max Domi will be out of a contract. You have two kind of bottom six players there signed for, you know, almost, what is that, $4.5 million total, which, you know, we'll get to some of these players in a minute. You have some young players, some, you know, fill-in-the-gap players. And then when you look at the defense, you have Morgan Rielly, who is your superstar, or not your really superstar, but your star defenseman. You got TJ Brody, Jake McCabe, some kind of some role players, Timothy Liljegren, Connor Timmins, Mark Giordano, and then you just kind of fill in. And then goaltenders has been kind of shared between Ilya Samsonov, who I believe got sent down to the AHL, Martin Jones, who was their backup, along with what is his name? Joseph Woll is out injured. He's kind of like week to week right now, and I think they just called up some random guy just to kind of fill in. So I want to break down this roster, right, and try to do, what do I think of the extension? I mean, the guy's doing well. I mean, looking at his stats alone, I mean, this year he has 57 points in 38 games. He is 9 points, or is that 10, 11 points, whatever it is, above Matthews for the team lead in points. So obviously he's crushing it, right? Now here's the thing, right? The top four players that you are paying starting next year are your top four guys in points. All right, should be how it goes anyway. And even once you add in the Morgan Rielly deal, he is your fifth guy. So you're the guys you're spending money on are the ones producing the points. But here's the problem. You have nobody else. And what I mean nobody else is when you look at this team, when you look at the stats on your screen, you have Nylander, you have Matthews, you have Marner, you have Tavares, and you have Rielly. After that, your team is struggling. Now, obviously, some of these guys, you know, given what their role is, are doing fine, you know, on a normal average team. But when you have four absolute superstars and you need the support around them, you're not getting it on this team, right? You have your Domies, your Bertuzzis, your Yarncrocs, your Matthew Knees. You're those types of players that are, you know, there and not really doing too much of anything. But there's a reason why Toronto hasn't done well in the playoffs. They've won one round in the last, what was it, like 15, 16 years, something like that. Like a good amount of time. They have not made it past the first round in the playoffs, right? They could get to the playoffs, but couldn't win. So I'm not a big fan of this strategy of, you know, you have your, I guess your fabulous five over here, which is great, but when you don't have the right pieces around them, then that's not really helping you. So also we have, do have a couple of injuries in here. John Klingberg, who they expected to be, a big piece of their defense. He's out for the season with hip surgery. Again, not sure what happened. Jake Muzzin, who was a good defensive kind of defenseman, veteran guy, out for the season. You have Joseph Woll, who's a goaltender, who is out week to week. So, of course, that's going to be a little bit of a struggle. Matt Murray, who is a goaltender for them, is missing the entire season, hasn't played all year. So, when you look at this team, when you look at the top 10 guys, so beyond that Fab 5, if you call it that, you have Max Domi at 22 points, a lot of penalty minutes. Okay, but he's also listed on, like, their third line. So, if that's where you want to play him, then sure. But, I would like to see, if he would fit with either of the other, top two lines. Calle Jarnkrok, 19 points in 38 games. I mean, not terrible, but again, kind of need some more from these support pieces. Tyler Bertuzzi, I mean, he's making $5.5 million. Not really earning that contract. I mean, 18 points, 38 games. He's got 20 penalty minutes, plus 8. I mean, again, not terrible, but again, you can't always get a lot of points when you have your kind of 4 superstars ahead of you. Then you have, who else is that? Matthew Knees at 15 points, 36 games. I mean, not terrible. Jake McCabe, 14 points, 32 games. I mean, all these guys are positive so far. Then you get down into, like, the depth and, like, the lower kind of players on these rosters, and it starts to fall off, like, significantly as far as points go. I mean, even after, Riley in the 5th position, it kind of falls off. So, it's great that you have all these guys that have these big contracts and everyone's making money, but if I saw it correctly, you have almost no cap space, but you don't really have a full team. So, looking up and down this roster, I see, as you guys are seeing on your screen, I see 4 guys, then I see a underperforming Bertuzzi for that contract. Domi, $3 million, okay, whatever. David Kampf is a 4th line player who has 8 points in 37 games, has 12 penalty minutes, and is a -6. So to have him locked up for the next 4 years at $2.4 million, I don't know who signed him that, especially with a modified no trade clause. Who in the world signed him to that contract? The Toronto Maple Leafs did. So just for context, he's been in the league 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, has never had more than 27 points, and before he was with Toronto, his max was 19 points, not even played a full year until last year, and this year is just not doing great. So, a career 4th liner, 3rd when you absolutely need it, but a career 4th liner gets $2.4 million for 4 years, which is the stupidest of contracts. You have Calle Jarnkrok, who I said, he was 7th in the kind of overall points, $2.1 million for 3 years. I mean, that's not terrible, but it's not great by any means. Then you have a couple guys on entry-level contracts, some AHL kind of guys, some guys to like, minimum contracts. So, again, you don't really have a lot of support pieces on the forward side. And then once we look down towards defense, you have Morgan Riley. You have TJ Brody, who next year will definitely not get $5 million. His salary will probably be greatly reduced. Then you have Jake McCabe, 2 years, $2 million. It's part of a retained salary deal. I don't remember who he was in a trade with, but 2 years, $2 million. I mean, that's not terrible for, I guess he's a top 4 defenseman. Then you have Timothy Liljegren on a 1-year contract, $1.4 million. Not terrible. Connor Timmins, 2 years, $1.1 million left. Okay, not terrible. You have Mark Giordano, Simon Benoit, and William Lageson, I don't know how to pronounce his name, all pretty much at the league minimum contracts. So, not terrible there. You have a couple of goaltenders that are either injured or just not performing. Ilya Samsonov got sent down to the AHL. Martin Jones on an $875 backup kind of contract. No worries there. So you take a look at the IR. Obviously, these guys are injured. Can't do much about that. But signing Ryan Reeves to a 3-year contract at 36 years old when he has been a career fourth-liner, enforcer type guy, 3-year contracts don't make sense. Would never sign him to that contract. Joseph Wall, I think he's still on his entry-level contract. Maybe he's on another contract, not sure. And then, obviously, lots of money tied up in long-term IR as well. Jake Muzzin, $5.6 million. Matt Murray, $4.6 million. John Klingberg, $4.1 million. So lots of money tied up there. Obviously, with the LTIR, it doesn't really count towards the cap. But it'd be nice to have, some of that money off the books so you don't have to worry about it. And then other than that, you have lots of guys that you drafted, that you signed, all on entry-level contracts, minor league contracts that, I don't really know too much about half of them. But, most likely they're not ready to come up anytime soon. So my advice to Toronto, and I hate to say it because he is your captain, and once you look down the lineup, if you clear up some of your salary problems and get in players that could be better support pieces for your star players, you might be in a better position. Because if you're telling me right now that Tyler Bertuzzi right now is worth $5.5 million to you, that'd be kind of a lie. Max Domi, $3 million. I mean, I probably wouldn't want to have him at that much, but hey, whatever. David Kampf, I'd want to trade that contract immediately, right? For a fourth-line player, $2.4 million for 4 years, absolutely stupid. Kelly Yarncroc, I mean, that's not a terrible contract. But then even on your defense, if you could trade TJ Brody, a lot of these, actually, I didn't even mention this, a lot of these guys have no move contracts, have no trade contracts, or clauses in their deals, I should say, not contracts. But, pretty much your top 9 forwards all have either no moves, no trades, whatever. Your top 3 defensemen all have no move, no trade, retained salary, modified, no trade. So if you clean up some of your salary, you get better, more efficient quality depth pieces that would help with your salary issue. But then signing more people to these huge contracts, I don't know how well that's going to work out for you, right? You have your Matthews, your Marner, and your Nylander as your top 3 guys. But then you have John Tavares, who has another year at $11 million, which, I hate to say it, you might need to let him walk either in free agency or trade him next year to try to get pieces back. Because trying to get him at a big contract just is not going to work. So you have, what is this math? It's, that's 39, 40% of your cap space is your top 3 players. Then you add in another 8%, so that's 48% is your top 4 forwards. And then, what did I say, 48? So that's almost 50, what is that, 50 math? Almost 50+% of your money is tied up in 5 players. And you wonder why you don't have a good, team that can compete in the playoffs. But this is a lot of just food for thought. Obviously, I'm not in the locker room. I'm not, a fan of Toronto. But it seems like, there's definitely some things here you can do to kind of build yourself for a team that can actually win in the playoffs and finally bring a Stanley Cup to Toronto. But guys, that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy, make sure to hit the like button, comment all of your thoughts down below, and subscribe if you haven't already. But as always, guys, we'll see you in the next one.